Hello everyone, my name is Nancy. At 38, I've always had a small, close-knit family, so attending large gatherings has never been part of my regular routine. That all changed when I married my husband, Charles, and found myself introduced to his expansive family. The first big event I attended was a grand family reunion, a celebration that brought together over 210 relatives. The venue was buzzing with lively music, laughter, and animated conversations. For Charles, this was just another annual tradition, but for me, it was both a new and overwhelming experience. Charles's family was all about big celebrations. This reunion was a chance to reconnect with distant relatives and indulge in a feast of home-cooked dishes. However, what should have been a joyful day soon became a nightmare for me. My mother-in-law, Amy, has always treated me with disdain, and for reasons I can never fully understand. She holds the belief that I am infertile. This misconception, based on nothing but gossip, has hurt me deeply, especially since my journey to motherhood has been fraught with challenges, including countless doctor's visits, emotional highs and lows, and recurring heartbreak. At the reunion, Amy took the opportunity to confront me in front of everyone, making cruel remarks about my supposed inability to have children, all under the guise of concern. Without hesitation, she blurted out, "Nancy, dear, still no pregnancy? You really should hurry up. You're not getting any younger. Oh wait, you're infertile. What a shame. I wish my son had married someone who could give him children." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. I was stunned by her blatant cruelty and demanded that she repeat herself, still not quite believing what I had just heard. But Amy wasn't done. No, she wanted to make sure the entire room knew about my personal struggles. Without hesitation, she marched up to the DJ and asked to use his microphone. As the music faded, a hushed silence descended over the crowd. I felt an icy chill of dread spread through me, knowing that all eyes were on me, waiting to hear what Amy would say next. I hadn't planned on making a scene, but in that moment, I realized that perhaps this could be an opportunity for others to learn about sensitivity in family settings. Charles, who had been talking with relatives, sensed something was off and quickly made his way toward the DJ booth. Knowing his mother's lack of tact all too well, he rushed to stop her, but the distance was too great, and he couldn't reach her in time. Holding the microphone, Amy began, "If you look over at Nancy, you'll notice she's not pregnant, not in the 7 years she's been married to Charles. Shocking, isn't it? But don't worry, it's not her fault. She's infertile." Charles shouted, "Mom, that's enough," but his voice was drowned out by the amplified sound of Amy's words. Undeterred, she continued, "Don't worry, Charles. This is a teachable moment. Nancy, I know this is hard, but you need to hear it. You're infertile, and by not fixing it, you're wasting everyone's time. We're all aging, and I want grandchildren. Maybe it's time you consider a surrogate, or even a divorce." Her words stung like nothing I had ever felt before. I stood frozen, my face burning with humiliation as the crowd turned to look at me. Some faces were filled with disgust, others with sympathy, but many seemed equally uncomfortable, sharing in my mortification. Amy pressed on, "Nancy, really, think about addressing your infertility. It's selfish, and frankly, embarrassing." "I want a grandchild," she persisted, her voice cutting through the tension until, finally, Charles reached her and intervened. As he cut her off, I felt like I was frozen in place, unable to move. The world around me seemed to blur, and all I could focus on were the countless pairs of eyes locked onto me. If the earth could have swallowed me whole in that moment, I would have welcomed it. Despite Charles's efforts to stop her, the damage had already been done. The mix of contempt, pity, and shared discomfort from the crowd was overwhelming. As someone who loathes being pitted, this felt like the ultimate humiliation. It was unbearable to be the center of such harsh attention, and worse, to be utterly powerless to stop it. I'm not used to feeling helpless. I'm typically outspoken, but in that moment, I was paralyzed, unable to speak as the entire family watched. The DJ, sensing the tension, tried to lift the mood, urging the party to continue, but the atmosphere had already shifted irreparably. Some guests resumed their conversations, but whispers spread like wildfire, and I knew that this incident would be the talk of the family for weeks. Overcome with emotion, I did what felt like the only option. I ran. The feeling of being an outsider, scrutinized and unloved, was too much to bear. As I saw Charles and Amy heatedly discussing the scene, I darted inside the house and locked myself in the nearest bathroom. There, I collapsed into tears. After what felt like an eternity, I heard a knock on the door. It was Charles. The first thing he said when he saw my tear-streaked face was, "I swear to God, After today, I'm never speaking to that woman again. But Charles, you can't just cut off your mother, I responded, even though part of me wished he could. Yeah, well, she's also a bully, he retorted, his frustration evident. Feeling defeated, I whispered, I can't ever show my face here again. Charles, always my protector, quickly said, we can leave right now if you want, just say the word, and we're out of here. But leaving felt like surrender, and I wasn't ready to admit defeat just yet. What did you say to her? I asked, curious about how he had defended us. Charles paused for a moment, his face still reflecting disbelief. I confronted her about her cruel words and how inappropriate her behavior was. I couldn't believe she'd say something like that, especially in front of so many strangers. We don't even know half the people here. I know, love, he continued, his voice softening. I've let her walk all over you for too long. I'm sorry it got to this point. In that moment, I felt a wave of warmth toward him. We embraced, and I let the tears flow freely. Despite everything, I cherished Charles so deeply. I had been taught as a child to always be strong, to keep my emotions in check, but Charles was always there, ready to catch my tears and offer comfort. Pulling back slightly, I looked up at him, and his warm brown eyes met mine, reminding me once again of the depth of my love for him. Amid the chaos of that day, this moment of tenderness reminded me of the strength we shared. Still sniffling, I managed a weak smile, trying to shift my focus away from the embarrassment. Do you remember how we first met? I asked, hoping to distract myself with a happier memory. Charles chuckled, his eyes lighting up with the recollection. Of course I do. How could I forget? It was a perfect day. I laughed, the memory coming back to me vividly. It felt like it had just happened yesterday. We were both at the university library, fighting over the last available power outlet. What started as a minor squabble soon turned into an engaging conversation that lasted for hours. By the time we parted, we'd exchanged numbers, and as they say, the rest was history. I love you so much, Charles, I said, feeling a surge of affection for him. I love you too, Nancy. More than anything in this world, he replied, his voice full of tenderness. And if you want to leave this party, just say the word. It's pretty much over after what my mother did. His words were firm but caring, and for a moment, I felt the weight of everything that had happened. I knew he would do anything to protect me. Charles, do you remember when we found out? I asked, shifting the topic to something more personal. His expression turned serious, a shadow crossing his face. Yes, I remember. We were trying so hard, and I secretly feared it might be me with the issue. But when we found out it was actually you who was infertile, it felt even more heartbreaking. I could have handled it if it were me, but not you. You're just so perfect. I never expected it, and I never wanted that for you. I'm so sorry. I know, babe, I said, my voice soft but steady. It was a tough time for both of us, but we got through it together. And we'll get through this too. The strength of our bond reassured me. Charles smiled, his love and reassurance shining through. We're in this together, no matter what life throws at us. Maybe I should tell her the truth, I mused aloud, the thought of confronting his mother daunting but present in my mind. Charles shook his head gently. Nancy, you know my mom. Even if you'd been upfront with her from the start, she probably would have found some other way to cause trouble. It's not your fault she harbors so much resentment about us not having kids yet. And honestly, she wrongly assumes it's your fault, which isn't fair to you. Don't beat yourself up over this, Charles. It's okay, I said, my voice steady, despite the turmoil inside me. I can handle her disdain. As we spoke, I realized how deeply connected and resilient our relationship was. Even in the face of adversity, Charles's unwavering support reminded me why I loved him so much. We were a team, and no matter what challenges came our way, we would face them together. I can't bear the thought of your mother disliking you just because of your infertility, I admitted, the weight of it hitting me. Especially with her obsession with continuing the family bloodline. It's true, Charles agreed, his tone a mix of annoyance and humor. She did invite 210 people to this reunion, which now that I think about it, is a little excessive. But no, he said, a spark of resolve lighting up his eyes. I'm not going to let this stand. Before I could even ask what he meant, he released my hand and left the bathroom. I stayed behind, alone with my thoughts, overwhelmed by the day's events. About 12 minutes later, just as I was picturing Charles making a dramatic scene or giving some grand declaration to the family, he returned, much to my relief. Thank goodness, I whispered to myself, grateful that he was back and the storm might have passed. I sighed, half joking, I thought you were out there doing something drastic. I was ready to run out and stop you. You might still want to stop me, but I won't let you, Charles replied with a sly smile, his hands holding a stack of papers. What are these? I asked, a wave of apprehension washing over me. These are my infertility test results, along with your high fertility results, he explained. I printed them out earlier at the library. My heart sank. How could he have taken such a step without discussing it with me first? And now he wanted me to show them to his mother. I couldn't just expose him like that, especially not in front of everyone. I can't do that, Charles. I told you, I can't just show these to her, I protested. But Charles didn't waver. Nancy, she humiliated you in front of everyone. She deserves to be put in her place. She'll be embarrassed, because of how wrong she was. I hesitated, feeling torn between defending our dignity and protecting Charles's privacy. I know, but I just can't do it. It's not fair to you, I insisted. Charles stepped closer, his gaze intense. I don't care about that, Nancy. Being infertile is nothing to be embarrassed about, even though it's so heavily stigmatized. There are ways to address it, babe. And I think I'm ready to face these challenges head-on. His words were gentle, yet there was a calm, determined strength behind them. I think we should look into alternative methods of conceiving, he suggested, his tone full of quiet resolve. Looking up at him, I was overwhelmed by his love and selflessness. How could he be so willing to put himself out there, ready to tackle this condition and explore solutions? For so long, infertility had been a sensitive topic between us, but now, as I gazed into his loving eyes filled with compassion and determination, I felt a new wave of hope and admiration for the man I loved. We were in this together, ready to face whatever came our way. Charles's willingness to open up and explore new possibilities for us brought a sense of clarity and compassion that felt like a pivotal moment in our relationship. But I couldn't shake the feeling that this was about more than just confronting an issue. It was about the respect I had never received from his mother. She's never really tried to understand me, Charles, I confessed, the hurt in my voice clear. Instead, she's turned my infertility into a cruel joke. Charles wrapped his arm around me, pulling me close for reassurance. I know, Nancy. That's exactly why we need to do this. To stand up for ourselves and show her we won't be pushed around anymore. Fortified by his support, I nodded. Okay. Let's do it. We stepped outside, rejoining the party. To the casual observer, it seemed like the festivities had resumed smoothly, but we both knew the drama wasn't over. I gave Charles a questioning look. Are you sure? He didn't answer with words, but instead led me toward the DJ booth, the very place of my earlier humiliation. Charles grabbed the microphone, instantly commanding the room's attention. Attention, everyone, he began, his voice steady and authoritative. We have something important to say. The crowd quieted, heads turning as they waited in anticipation. Earlier today, my wife was unfairly and rudely attacked for no good reason. Now, she wants to share her side of the story, Charles announced, handing me the microphone. As I took the mic, my heart pounded in my chest, scanning the crowd, my gaze locked onto one pair of eyes, Amy's. She looked at me with disdain, and as I began to speak, I saw her start making her way toward the booth. Hello, everyone, I began, trying to steady my nerves. As you may or may not know, I'm Charles's wife, and Amy is my mother-in-law. I took a steadying breath as Amy approached, her figure looming in the distance. Just as I was about to speak, she cut me off, her voice sharp and demanding. That's enough. But instead of feeling the usual rush of fear, a wave of confidence surged through me, driven by frustration with her constant disrespect. You will not interrupt me while I speak, I said, my voice unwavering. I gave you a chance to speak, and now it's my turn. Taken aback by my assertiveness, Amy fell silent. I pressed on, feeling more certain with each word. Thank you. As I was saying, I don't need to repeat the exact words said about me. It's not just about what was spoken. It's about respect, understanding, and family values, things we should all hold dear. I stand here not to shame anyone, but to assert that respect and empathy should never be conditional. No one in this family should feel less than me. We're here to support each other, not tear each other down. The crowd grew quiet, some nodding in agreement as I shared not just my grievances, but a message of unity and respect, hoping it would resonate with everyone, not just Amy. As someone who values truth, I must correct the false information spreading about me and my family, I continued, locking eyes with Amy. You seem to think I'm infertile and unable to have a child, but let me clarify the situation. It's your son, Charles, who is infertile. I gestured to Charles, who handed over the documents to Amy. The room filled with stunned whispers, and I glanced at Charles, concerned about how he was holding up. To my relief, he looked calm, even smiling at the shock on his mother's face. Amy's face drained of color. What are you talking about? This can't be true, she stammered. But Charles was calm, unwavering. It is true, he said firmly, and what's more, Nancy has a high fertility rate. The crowd gasped, murmurs spreading like wildfire. The tension in the air was thick as Amy turned to Charles. Why didn't you tell me about this? She asked, her voice trembling. Charles responded with quiet resolve. Maybe because I wasn't ready. Infertility is a sensitive topic, and I know you wouldn't have treated me this way if the situation were reversed. But humiliating Nancy in front of everyone, that's something I can't overlook. I had to set the record straight. Amy opened her mouth, but no words came. I'm sorry, Charles, she finally mumbled, barely audible. Don't apologize to me, Charles replied sternly. Apologize to Nancy. At first, Amy hesitated, as if asking her to apologize was a monumental task, but then Charles, unable to let it slide, took the microphone from me and started chanting, apologize, apologize, apologize. Soon, the crowd joined in, the chant echoing through the room. Despite the pressure mounting from all sides, Amy's pride held firm. I won't apologize, she declared defiantly. She doesn't deserve it. Even if I was wrong about the fertility issue, why didn't she clear the air sooner? She's the one trying to embarrass me now. The crowd's reaction turned from shock to disdain, their boos ringing out as if they were rejecting her every word. Amy, unable to stand the mounting pressure, retreated into the house, isolating herself for the remainder of the event. Despite several attempts by relatives to coax her out, she refused to face the consequences of her actions. The party resumed, though the aftertaste of the confrontation lingered in the air. Charles and I were approached by many family members, who expressed relief that someone had finally stood up to Amy. Some were shocked to learn the extent of her vindictiveness, while others were just thankful for the courage we'd shown. By the evening's end, the reunion felt more like a true gathering of family, and I felt grateful for the support and the bonds that were strengthened that day. However, the following morning, we received a call from one of Charles's aunts. The family had decided that unless Amy apologized, she would no longer be invited to future gatherings. They also advised us to keep our distance until she could mature and take responsibility for her actions. I agreed wholeheartedly. We were done enabling her toxic behavior. Charles and I took a step back, realizing that we couldn't continue to let Amy's drama affect our future. We knew that, as we planned to start our own family, we needed to create a healthy, positive environment. We decided to send Amy a heartfelt message, expressing that while we would have loved for her to be part of our lives, we couldn't tolerate her negativity any longer. Charles left her a voicemail, and I followed up with an email. To no surprise, she never responded. It became clear that her pride was more important to her than maintaining any relationship with her son or potential grandchildren. It was an easy decision to cut her out, but it still left a bitter taste in my mouth. Charles was grieving the loss of his mother, despite everything she'd done. I had once hoped that Amy and I could build a relationship, but now I knew that hope was futile. As for Amy, I have no idea how she's faring now, and honestly, I don't care. What I do remember clearly, though, is the day of the reunion, the day I vowed never again to let anyone belittle me. It was a lesson in standing firm in my self-worth, a lesson I would carry with me always.